Gonna be in 4 years.
Oh, no.
If you don't find an alternative, you're gonna die.
Society had given up on them. They had given up on themselves.
It's hard to be a loser, man.
I'm not the one who put you here, all right? You put yourself here.
But one man dared to take a risk.
You want to start a football team?
Come on, Sean. It's impossible.
Then let's try the impossible.
And turn the rage that made them enemies
I'll kill you right here, right now.
into a bond that could make them brothers.
On the gridiron, we do it my way. Your way got you here, and you're here because you lost. And if you accept this challenge, you're gonna be winners.
You asked it around, you're the country around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You're not qualified, Emil.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Are you inspired?
You know what? Hey, kids, it's your old pal, Mallard. That intro, that was The Rock as Sean.
Or Sean is the Rock?
Sean is the... No, I think it was The Rock as Sean because he was talking about commitment. He's talking about being there for the team. And, of course, Sean...
Wait. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Can we go to Sean? Oh, yeah, there's the Sean cam. Yep, look at that. He's never looked so good. And, you know, we talk about transparency being important. Look at Sean. You can see right through me. There's nothing to hide. He will be here at some point. Apparently that construction that's been going on between here and Ann Arbor for all these years, that's expected to go on for all these years ahead, is still going on. So Sean will be here when Sean gets here. And you'll know 15 minutes after he gets here because he'll say something. So it's going to be perfect. But that's okay because
Preceded
that means...
Can I say something?
Yeah, exactly. I need to ask a question here. Can we wrap this up? Apropos of nothing, have you ever had maple syrup from a stiletto heel?
Well, that's why we love the man.
Well, let's just say we're very tolerant. But that gives us more time with our guest. We have joining us this week from USA Today, Kenny Jacoby, the investigative sports reporter at USA Today, who broke the Mel Tucker story. He's the one who basically, I would say, put the Michigan State University football program into turmoil. But as a Spartan, I have to tell you, it was already kind of in turmoil. It just sort of found another level. So we're going to be talking to Kenny in a minute about how he got on the story, where the story's headed since the first story broke, which was a little sooner than everybody expected. And we'll talk to Kenny about that. He's also broken some other big stories and written about a subject that Mark has kind of noodle on a little bit, which is, was this all drawn out so that Mel could pile up as many checks as possible before he had to hit the door? And I'll tell you, I'm stunned that the university is trying to terminate him already because I thought for sure they would want to try and settle this because once you get into a lawsuit, you get into the discovery process where both sides can ask the other side for all kinds of confidential information. And what you find, what a judge can compel you to surrender, may make you wish you'd written a big-ass check so that the whole thing could be done and buried and gone. It's also going to keep this cloud over Michigan State for a year or two if this case goes the distance because civil suits drag on and on and on, and clearly the university wants to end the Mel Tucker
that discovery
chapter.
Works both ways. Who knows what else Michigan State might have on him?
Well, that's true, in which case he may want to reach a settlement. But one time somebody sued us, somebody had written a big expose on, and we had all these things that we were pretty certain had happened. We just couldn't get people to go on the record. And so so when this person who also happened to be a lawyer said, you know, I think I'm going to sue you, I'm sure my bosses would have fallen out of their chair if they'd heard me. But I said, if you do, we're going to have discovery in a lot of these things that we want to get from you. We'll ask a judge to turn them over, and a judge will turn them over. And if you think that we wrote everything that we believe to be true, you are going to find out what the whirlwind is like because you're about to reap it. But
these stories have legs. I mean, they're so multifaceted. That's why I'm glad Kenny's with us today, too. There's so much to unpack with it.
No, and as stories go with legs, this thing may end up being a centipede, but it's all brought to you by Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, who will help you prepare for your retirement, help you make some good decisions. If you're a UAW worker who's wondering, am I going to have enough money to retire? Is this the time to retire? Talk to somebody like Luke who has the expertise to tell you what kind of financial shape you're in. We're going to tell you after Kenny bounces how Luke can help you and where you can contact Luke. We also want to let you know the Caju Cafe, the Pride of the East Side, is still going strong with music, great food, great times. You can find out more about them at Caju Cafe, and we'll tell you who's playing at the Caju this week in room 7609. And the Michigan Peddler is back. You know, the summer is over, but fall doesn't mean winter. There's still a couple months of great rides downtown, Corktown, Midtown. Get on a Michigan Peddler bike with your buddies. And we will tell you, if you book a ride with the Michigan Peddler, who's supporting us, we want to support them by offering you some really cool exclusive ML Soul of Detroit swag if you book a ride with the Michigan Peddler. We'll tell you how to do that in just a minute. But first, let's get to the man of the hour, Kenny Jacoby, who has been breaking some big stories for years at USA Today, and now here in East Lansing. Kenny, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So every story starts somewhere, and it becomes a journey, and sometimes it's a long and winding road, and sometimes you think it's going to be a marathon, and all of a sudden it turns into a sprint. How did this one start, and tell us when it went from being a marathon to maybe a half marathon and ended up getting out a little sooner than everybody expected?
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly what happened. So I've known Brenda Tracy for a long time, probably about 6 years, through other stories that I've done that have to do with sexual misconduct in sports. And so I've known Brenda. And in May of this year, she asked to speak with me confidentially about this situation involving Mel Tucker. And she had said, you know, essentially that she was going through this sexual harassment case involving him. She had filed a complaint in December 2022. And she was worried that her name was going to leak out and this case was going to become public. It was really Brenda's goal to make it all the way through the case without the media being involved. And in her case, you know, the hearing was ultimately scheduled in October. So at some point over the spring, Brenda asked me to work on a story about the case, but under essentially an embargo so that we would have it ready in case information about it started to leak out. And we felt like, you know, we needed to come out and publish our story because, you know, bad information was getting out publicly, or, you know, just information that, you know, was incomplete, where we would have wanted to, you know, provide the full perspective. So I had been working on the story since June. We were still kind of, you know, we were hearing rumors throughout the case that, oh, this media outlet has reached out for comment to Michigan State about sexual harassment allegations involving Mel Tucker, or this outlet has filed a public records request. And, you know, through all that, we managed to, you know, keep the story close to our vest. But in early September, we started hearing details of the case being shared with some local reporters in the USA Today network. Specifically, Brenda's name was mentioned in connection with those rumors. And that was sort of the turning point where she decided, I don't think we're going to make it to this hearing in October without the story getting out. So she gave us the green light to go ahead and publish it in the late hours of Saturday night last week.
So for people who are not in our business, it's not unusual for a source to offer you a story with a caveat, which would be an embargo. That doesn't mean that they've written the story. It doesn't mean that they've edited the story. It doesn't mean they have any approval over the story. It just means for reasons that may be important to them. Sometimes it's reasons that are important to us, like we want it to run on the biggest day of the week, on a Sunday or something like that. We hold the story. Politicians all the time say, here's my State of the Union speech, but you can't publish your story until I've given the speech. And that just helps reporters know what somebody's going to say so they can do some research, maybe do some truth squatting. So the fact that there was an embargo, folks, this is not a conspiracy. This is how it works. And virtually everybody who's ever dealt with a report before has said, this is a story I want you to tell. but I'm not ready to go forward until such and such a time. And that timing's interesting to me because it seems if you were trying to leverage a settlement out of Mel Tucker or the university, you would say, basically, you got until October when we have the hearing to make me a rich woman. Otherwise, I am going to rock your world. Well, that's not what happened.
To that point, ML Kenny, wasn't she offered a settlement from Mel Tucker or somewhere along the line?
Mel Tucker has accused her of trying to get a settlement from the university. My understanding is that did not happen. He has made a number of statements that have proven to be inconsistent or misleading at best, and I believe that was one of them.
So there was never any kind of settlement offered from him to her.
I can't report that right now.
Okay. Oh. Now, when she came to you with this story, had you ever heard his name with any other rumors? Because there's always rumors abound. But was this a total shock and surprise, or were you like, well, there was always a little bit of smoke?
Yeah, there was smoke throughout this case. This is a really high profile situation. We're talking about one of the highest profile coaches in the entire country, one of the nation's leading advocates against sexual violence and one of the loudest voices in that space. And then, of course, Michigan State, who is, has this reputation of being best known probably for mishandling the sexual abuse scandal against Larry Nassar. So, the cast of characters involved here, we knew that was a recipe for a really potentially big story. And just given Michigan State's history with mishandling this sort of information, Brenda said she went into the process very skeptical. And she was sort of expecting that, at some point, some information is going to get out. And, her instincts were right in that respect. We were able to kind of just wait it out when we were initially hearing rumors of just, this outlet said they've heard about sexual harassment allegations involving Mel Tucker. That wasn't, so much our concern. But when Brenda's name started being attached to those rumors, that was what really concerned her, is this information should not have been getting out. I know Michigan State has said at the after this news came out that some officials, their president, their board of trustees, their athletic director, knew some basic details about the case, like such that it was, a complaint filed by a third-party vendor for the school. Alan Haller, the athletic director, I guess, had the specific information that Brenda Tracy was the complainant. So there was this circle of people that knew about it, and it really wasn't supposed to leave that circle, but it clearly did, and that's what prompted us to pull the trigger a little bit earlier than we had planned.
So I just want to correct one thing Kenny said. We're actually very well known in East Lansing for our super colliding cyclotron. It's the biggest in the world. So it's that and mishandling Nassar. I guess I would just say that we're known for two things. Luckily, we are properly handling this thing that could bring about the apocalypse. So good job with the cyclotron. But in terms of dealing with any other scandal, bad job, Michigan State. Terrible job, Michigan State.
Yes,
as I wrote in the Free Press on Sunday.
But as Kenny knows, that's a problem a lot of universities have. They don't handle these kind of complaints very well at all. I mean, they get the spotlight because of Nassar, but name any other university, they just don't handle Title IX sexual misconduct claims very well.
Well, and this is kind of your beat, right, Kenny? I mean, you are, I would say, probably the nation's leading expert on how universities handle cases like this.
Yeah, I've covered a lot of stories of a similar nature, at the intersection of sexual misconduct in sports. And you're absolutely right that colleges have a bad rep for handling these types of cases. About in 2011, the White House, issued a mandate basically for the whole country, for all federally funded schools, that, they can't, sit by as sexual assaults happen on their campuses. They have to take action to investigate these reports when they come in. And, since then, colleges have, virtually every college in the country has, been accused of mishandling a case in some way, whether that is, an accusation from a survivor or somebody who's accused in these sorts of cases. But then, you add to it the high profile nature of this case. And I think the inherent tension in all of these campus Title IX cases is you really want the school to do a completely impartial, unbiased investigation. But when you add in the fact that we're now dealing with the reputation for the institution, an $80 million $80 million remaining on this coach's contract, then you start to worry that the decisions being made in these cases are getting political and are not just about the facts anymore. And I think, you could certainly accuse Michigan State of that. We don't have the evidence to suggest that they did anything politically motivated here. But when you have a history of making poor decisions in these types of cases, that's the first thing that people's minds are going to jump to.
Yeah, they seem to always want to protect the institution first, because there's a lot of people that rely on that institution, I suppose, or their job is involved. Kenny, what do you say to those people? And I'm kind of one of them that don't buy Brenda's story 100%. Maybe it was consensual. Everything Mel Tucker did after was abhorrent. It was wrong. He lied. But there did seem to be a flirtation there. Maybe it was consensual. People point to the 36-minute phone call that Mel referenced in his letter. So tell me, where am I wrong, or where am I misled here to maybe not believe her 100%?
Yeah, well, first of all, the focus should be on, the allegations of sexual misconduct, right? And Brenda Tracy, she can't control the decisions that Mel Tucker makes. Now, the thing that everyone jumps to, because Mel Tucker has come out and said, this was a consensual relationship, we had this romantic interest in each other, is then they start to scrutinize Brenda Tracy's actions. And they compare that to, well, is this something that, somebody who is in a relationship might do? A couple things on this point. I've covered a lot of sexual misconduct cases. People have this idea of exactly how a victim or survivor is supposed to respond in these situations. They want you to scream. They want you to confront the person immediately. They want you to report it to the police immediately. And it's all these things that people expect might happen. But when you're in that situation, it's a lot different. First of all, the body sort of takes over. There's a thing called fight, flight, or freeze. And that is typically, how people in threatening situations respond through one of those actions. And in sexual assault cases, the most common response is to freeze. And that's what Brenda said happened in this case. Now, we're also dealing with a huge power dynamic here. So Mel Tucker, is this, very high profile football coach with lots of connections in an industry where Brenda Tracy works. And she knows she has to tread lightly to be able to continue working in that industry, to maintain her career and her reputation. And things really crystallized for her the next time they spoke after this phone call, which was 3 months later. Brenda Tracy was supposed to be going back to Michigan State to continue her sexual misconduct programming that she had been hired to do. Mel Tucker canceled her visit 3 days before it was supposed to occur. And then finally they spoke on the phone again. And Brenda says in that phone call, Mel Tucker implicitly threatened that he would destroy her career if she spoke out about this. And so her response, as I understand it at first, was, I must protect my career. And that's why she stayed quiet about it for a little while. But then she sort of came to terms with the fact that, as this educator around sexual violence, if I don't report this, then I'm not the person who I said I was. And that's when she made the decision to do it. Now, what motivation does a person in that position have to come out? Yep. You have to think, is this what Brenda Tracy wants? Does she really want all these people across the country scrutinizing whether or not this is true? I don't think most people ask to be in that position.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I have heard people say, oh, this will help her business. But I'm like, I don't think this helps her business at all. I think this actually quite hurts, and this might be the end of her foundation. Has she told you as such? Has she lost other speaking gigs?
Yeah, so Brenda, one thing about the timing of the publication of the story was she was supposed to be working all week last week. She had scheduled visits to colleges all around the country, where she was going to deliver her speech, about sexual misconduct prevention and about specifically her gang rape by college football players back in 1998. Well, she did, one of those visits, and it seemed to go okay. And then she did another one, and it maybe didn't go as well. And she ended up canceling the rest of the visits. But she did have, some schools that were just skeptical about, like, do we want to bring her in right now? Is that making some sort of, statement, politically that we don't want to make? And so, I don't think there are like more schools jumping at the bit to hire her now. I think if anything, it probably goes in the other direction.
Well, the other thing that you have to think about with this is your future earning potential, which I know sounds probably somewhat crass, but I can't remember the name of the woman at Fox who was the first one to blow the whistle on Roger Ailes, the anchor. I think her last name was it Carlson? She filed a lawsuit. She's very successful. One of the stars at Fox won the lawsuit, and we've never seen her again. I can't even remember her name. And I interviewed her on WJR many years ago. This is the kind of thing where it could cost you your career, and certainly it throws things off. And I kind of expected to say, Kenny, that when she was doing these appearances, reporters were waiting to talk to her after she wrapped up to say, hey, we read what happened in USA Today. We have some questions for you.
Gretchen Carlson, by the way.
Gretchen Carlson, thank you. So one of the things that I think is significant with the university's move to fire Tucker is that they're not trying to fire him because he sexually assaulted anybody. They're going to the morals clause, and they're going to what judges might say, bring obloquy on the university, bringing shame to the university. So his conduct, regardless of whether this was consensual or not, was wrong as far as the university is concerned. And of course, I'm a union guy, so I know employers and employees often disagree on things. But this is, I just keep coming back to the poor judgment by everybody involved. But one of the things on the credibility issue, Kenny, that I don't know if you've spoken to Brenda about this is, I see people dig their heels in on, well, they both deleted their texts. Why would they do that? And has she spoken about why she doesn't have records or contemporaneous stuff from that time? Yeah.
So Brenda says that, after this August 2nd, 2022 phone call, which was the first time she and Tucker spoke after the incident, and the last time that they've ever spoken. They've not spoken since. She said that Mel Tucker, not so subtly, suggested that, he was going to take her down with him if she were to speak out about this. He, referenced all the connections he has in the industry, how this was going to hurt her more than this was going to hurt him. And she said she left that call feeling just terrified about, what this could mean for her, her career, and for her legacy. And she says that in a panic after that call, she deleted all her correspondence with him in order to cut ties with him. And so, I think you can, it's fair to scrutinize or criticize that action, but, consider yourself being put in those shoes for a minute. If your first instinct is, I have to save my reputation, and you're not thinking at the time, oh, here's what I need to do to hold this person accountable, then I think that, helps better inform, a third party who is trying to examine those actions. What was her state of mind at the time? And she says she basically panicked and she regrets doing it. But that is what happened.
And I think that's why a lot of people have questioned her, because, well, if anybody should know what to do when something's going on, it would be a person that runs a foundation. And people, and I know that's not why Mel Tucker got fired, but people are really focused on the actual incident and this thing that happened over FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it is. Did she ever tell you, did she ever record that and then delete it? Or was she just frozen the whole time? And then did she ever speak as to, well, people are saying, well, why didn't she hang up? This person would know that you just hang up in that situation. Do you know if it was recorded ever?
She did not record the phone call. We know, when the phone call occurred from the phone records that she provided to the investigator, and we know how long it lasted, 36 minutes. I've seen some people indicate, well, how could you just sit on the phone for 36 minutes? And my understanding is, the call started out as a normal conversation that they had been having for the previous few months while they had been working together professionally.
Okay.
And that the masturbation part of the call was not for the entire call. Now, I think, yes, I hear your argument that she is somebody who educates somebody about sexual assault, but she's on the prevention side of things. Her job is not to tell you how to respond in a given situation. And I think it's really unpredictable for anybody to know exactly how they would respond or to even think rationally in that moment when so many different confusing thoughts are just flooding your mind. And this idea of freezing, this is not a choice. This is a defense mechanism, right? It's something that your body does. It takes over when you feel that threat, and you can't control that. You can't snap out of that situation. It's almost like you're dissociating and watching what's happening to you. So, this is what she said happened. The reason why there's a hearing and 1,200 pages of case documents is so somebody else can look at the facts and decide this. It's not for us all to decide what happened. And I think we will get the opportunity to look at all of those case documents once this case ends. But right now, it's in the hands of a neutral outside attorney who is handling the hearing process from MSU, and they will deliver a report at the end that analyzes who is more credible, who has made statements that don't add up. And, there will still be a decision in that regard, even though Tucker is already being fired by the school.
So I'm not saying who did what. I don't know. I haven't investigated as much as Kenny has. I haven't investigated at all, really. And I would hazard a guess that even Kenny, who knows more about this than anybody else, wouldn't be comfortable saying one of these people is absolutely telling the truth beyond a reasonable doubt. But I can imagine if I'm on a phone call like that and somebody starts doing something like that, my reaction would be, what the hell is going on? And I would just sit there with my jaw dropped saying, is this really happening? Because
it takes
this
you a
is
while
not
to
what we're
realize.
supposed to talk about. And by the way, I was raised to have good manners, and I was never told what to say to someone who pulls out their crank and starts yanking. It's not like I say, nice form. I mean, I don't know what you would say. And if you've been assaulted before, I think you have got to just say, why do I even go anywhere near football players? Because this is
Kenny,
awful.
She was a little open about that. Yeah, there was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there not a little bit of flirtation before that? And she's like, wait, we can't do this. We work together. I mean, is that true, or is that something else that we're getting wrong?
That's not quite right.
Okay.
Basically, Mel Tucker has said that they had a flirtatious romantic relationship that they discussed openly. That has been his story. Brenda has said that she has never had any interest in Mel Tucker romantically, that she sensed, after a few weeks of getting to know him, or perhaps a few months, that, initially she believed he was really interested in her cause and in supporting her work. But it became clear to her that he was really more interested in her than in her cause. And so he did these sorts of things that to her suggested, that he was interested in her. He sent her gifts. He would send her copies of photos that she had posted on her Instagram and compliment her eyes and that sort of thing. And he had made some more explicit statements, like one time she says he asked her, if I wasn't a coach and I wasn't married, would you date me? He called her shirtless one time. And she says basically she made multiple efforts to set boundaries with him, to try and be polite about it because she was trying to maintain this business relationship with the school, but that she made clear to him, I don't date people in the industry. I don't date people I work with. And that's where she sort of left things. But, she was trying to continue her business relationship with the school so that she could continue providing sexual misconduct education training, which is her job, which is what she was hired to do. And she has said She's been in situations before where somebody has tried to flirt with her, and she's been able to, keep an arm's length from them. She tried to do that here, and she said Tucker was just persistent and continued pursuing her. So Tracy does not say that, she ever flirted with Tucker. She says that was a completely one-sided thing.
So again, I'm not taking sides here, but if you've ever spoken to a woman in business, almost every one of them, and a woman who's not in business, this used to happen to my mom, very attractive single mom, when she's buying a car, that guys will say inappropriate shit to you, and you're kind of like, okay, here we go again, but we got to complete this deal, or I want to make this sale, or I want to drive off the lot in this 72 gold Cutlass Supreme. This is, again, I don't know what happened. I haven't spoken to any of the parties here, but if you're alive and you've ever spoken to a woman who's had to deal with a man, for the most part, with the exception of me and Sean and Mark and Kenny, most guys kind of get a little creepy sometimes, and women have got to brush a lot of flies off.
God, yeah.
One thing that I've heard said, and again, I'm not the authority on this, so I'd love to get your answer to this, is there was some conversation where Brenda said to Mel, have you ever imagined what I would look like naked or in a swimsuit or something like that? Is that coming from Brenda? Is that coming from Mel? Do both sides acknowledge
she had to
this
work
happened?
out more, so she looked better naked. Wasn't that? I think that might have been the line.
Yeah. Is there anything that was said like that where Brenda said, yeah, I did say that, but that was just some bullshit?
No.
Okay.
That's coming completely from Mel Tucker.
Okay.
And, I think we had a tough job here, right? Like we were basically, condensing 1,200 pages of documents into a 3,500 word story that people could read in a few minutes, right? There's a thick packet, and where everybody explains, and answers every question for the investigators. They were interviewed for hours, and we weren't able to include every single detail from there in our story. But I think, once people have the opportunity to see the report for themselves, they'll see how she answered all these questions. But no, that's something that only Mel Tucker has said, that she made that comment, and that made him aroused, and that is what sort of started them having phone sex. Okay. She is saying that never occurred.
Okay.
So going back full circle, and that's why she wanted it embargoed until after the hearing, I would presume, which leads me back to you, Kenny. How pissed were you when ESPN tried to scoop you by mentioning the story coming out?
I guess, it doesn't really matter how I felt in that moment. That's how I'll put that.
You could be pissed. I would have been pissed.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we already knew there were rumors going around about it. And, that included ESPN and as well as other outlets. So we figured that somebody was going to report something imminently. We were kind of expecting that if an outlet did, they might have a little bit more to report than just anonymous sources. Mm-hmm. But that was the first piece that came out, and then we published ours about an hour later.
So, Kenny, you've been real generous with your time, and I know you need to get going soon, but there are just two quick things I want to touch on with you. One of them is we all deal with sources who are in a controversy, and often you find each side may say something that doesn't quite measure up to the truth, or may say something that's shaded to their advantage. And when I try and figure out who's right and who's wrong, I kind of just keep a simple scorecard of this person said 10 things that are lies, this person said 3 things that are lies, or they've said no things that are lies. And then I just use that as a tool to evaluate who I believe more. How many things roughly has Mel Tucker said that you believe are demonstrable lies? And how many things has Brenda Tracy said to you that you believe are demonstrable lies? What's the scorecard here?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you bring that up, because this is what we have to do to assess these allegations, right? The nature of these cases are that there are no eyewitnesses and often no recordings to these sorts of things. And so in that sense, it is a sort of a he said, she said. But the preponderance of evidence standard that schools use in these cases requires them to determine whose story is more likely to be true. And so it often comes down to whose account is more credible. And as you've noted, I've counted at least 5 different blatantly inconsistent statements that Tucker has made. And there are probably more than that, but that's what I've reported so far. So for one, when he was being interviewed by the investigator, he misled the investigator about where he was when the incident occurred. He said that he had been at home in East Lansing and that he had just gotten home from this trip to Florida that he said was absolutely not work related, was not a university event. Well, the investigator obtained records showing that that's not true, that he actually was in Naples, Florida, traveling on the university's dime when this incident occurred, and that he had been attending this charity golf tournament, and that absolutely was work related. He had submitted an expense report to the university seeking reimbursement for his hotel and meal costs during the trip, and he had flown there on a donor's private plane. And this expense report explicitly states that the work's purpose was administrative and did not involve personal travel. And so to me, when you can't even necessarily keep your story straight about where you were during this incident that is potentially catastrophic to your career, that's something that could really, harm your credibility later.
So that's 5 strikes on Mel. How many strikes does Brenda have?
I have not counted any for Brenda, and I have not reported any. I think when you hear her answer some of these questions that both of you have raised, your response is sort of like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe it's not what I would have expected to hear, but she's not, out here changing her story and getting, basic facts about it wrong.
Okay. Yeah, she's been very consistent, right? And I think in the last story you wrote, that Mel Tucker.
Yeah, I'm trying to put some distance between us. That E means the whole, and actually Mel is an anagram of MLE, which there's no way I'm going to be able to escape this.
But he made contradictory statements from what he told investigators versus his public statement. What were a few of those contradictions?
Yeah, so he puts out this public statement on Monday or Tuesday, I think Monday after the story ran, and he sort of repeats much of what he's been telling the investigator from the beginning, making a lot of allegations about Brenda and saying that he's being falsely accused, but one advantage we have is, Brenda gave us access to the full case file. And so I was able to go and compare his statements to what he told the investigator. And you're right that there were some pretty glaring inconsistencies. For instance, we talked earlier about this visit that Mel Tucker canceled, 3 days before it was supposed to occur. And that was sort of the impetus for them talking again and for this threat to be made. And Mel Tucker said in his statement that, oh, no, I never canceled Brenda's trip. We just postponed it until January 2021. Well, that is not what he told the investigators. He told the investigator, yes, absolutely, I had a role in canceling her visit. And furthermore, he said, we had no discussions about bringing her back in January 2023, because that would not make sense to do that, because my players would not even be here at that time. Yeah. And so, those sorts of things, like he's going back and forth. He's changing his story. And to me, it suggests that, he's not necessarily trying to win the case on the facts, but perhaps on public opinion.
Oh, what an idiot.
Hey, Kenny, Sean Windsor here.
Oh, hi, Sean. Sean showed up.
Little traffic and construction issues, but that's okay. I'm sorry if you've been asked this, but
fix the damn roads.
Yeah, exactly. What do you make?
Or 6.
I'm curious your opinion of how Michigan State has handled this, and kind of, I don't want to say hiding behind Title IX, but they act like they have not had access to information when the law and their own policies have absolutely allowed them to have access to information at any point.
Yeah, you're right about that. So Michigan State, they have come out and said that they first learned about the details of the case after reading USA Today's story. And their explanation for that is that that essentially they had this firewall set up between the Title IX office and the administration, so that, and this is actually a protocol that universities use to prevent these officials from potentially tampering in the case. You make sure that the case is housed within Title IX and that they have the opportunity to independently examine the facts without any undue influence from higher ups at the university who might have some interest in the outcome. So they're saying, they basically, this case has been going on almost 9 months and that they just learned the details. And there, it is possible that they could have known, right? The Title IX office could have absolutely gone to the university general counsel and said, hey, these facts are so clear cut. We think you need to know about them. We think maybe some action against Tucker is warranted while the investigation is ongoing. And, the university could have then come back and said, yeah, we've looked at this report and we also think, he should be suspended without pay. That's not what they did here. I think they were probably genuinely trying to keep some distance from the case, and maybe they'll look back on this and decide that wasn't the best course of action, just given the uniqueness of this situation. But I do think it was a difficult decision, because especially if you suspend him without pay, like at the onset of the investigation, before any fact-finding investigation has been done, then you're just inviting so much speculation and rumors and questions about, well, why is he being excluded from this team? And that's not always what victims want in these sorts of situations.
No, they don't. But when the report comes back in July, to me, and this is also somewhat of a protocol for universities, and just in general with HR departments, it's just kind of where our culture is. When there are allegations made like that, the organization will often suspend, sometimes with pay, pending the investigation, right? So, I understand it when it first happened in December to a degree, but the Title IX office is on that campus and they see what comes in July, and for them not to go to the council or the president or even the athletic director and say, we got an issue. This coach cannot be overseeing training camp and on the sideline for the first couple of games.
I want to piggyback that and ask this question, because, one of the stories Kenny wrote last week is how Mel Tucker's the one that delayed this, because that always boggled my mind. Like, why would they do it during the bye week? That's a really weird time when the report comes out in July. And it turns out he's the one, and his lawyer kept kicking the can down the road. And he was paid $750,000, I think he wrote, per month. Can Michigan State recoup any of that? Would they even bother recouping that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think they can get that back. I'm not a legal expert, but I think, the money's in his account, and it's not going to be easy to get that back. Going on the previous point, we don't know, right, if the Title IX office did make a recommendation to the general counsel or the president and say, hey, we think he should be suspended. And maybe somebody at the higher levels of the university decided that wasn't in their interest. We actually don't know that. So I don't want to speculate about who, did.
But they could. No, we don't know. But we don't know that. But they had that opportunity, right? Because they would with a lot of other employees. And again, I understand you don't want to speculate, but it seems that the opportunity was there, and just based on precedent with how they would handle, say, if a professor, and I made this point before, a professor or somebody who's running a building, a maintenance building, if they had a complaint come in, they would generally suspend pending the hearing, right?
I think, the case could be made that is, what they would have done with a professor potentially. But again, going back to the second point, right, and this speaks to the delays. I think, if Michigan State had any intention of firing him after this case based off, a finding of responsibility, they need to ensure that they've done everything that they can to give him, the due process that he's entitled to. And that includes, I think, in some cases, people have made the argument successfully in court that an interim suspension while a case is ongoing before it has concluded can actually in and of itself be a Title IX violation. Now, I think universities have some discretion here, and so they were allowed to decide what to do. But now speaking about the delays, we have a couple different things going on here. One, Mel Tucker delayed the case for 3 months at the onset of the investigation, while the investigator had spoken to everyone, all the witnesses and Brenda in the first month of the case. Tucker did not speak to the investigator until late March. And, in the meantime, he and his attorney were trying to get the investigation stopped. They were making lots of arguments that the school didn't have jurisdiction to investigate. And he and his attorney did approach Brenda Tracy about a potential settlement. On the back end, after this report was released in July, the hearing officer scheduled the hearing for late August. But Tucker and his attorney said, we're not available those dates. The school comes back and says, well, how about these 10 dates in September, and offer them to both sides. Brenda and her attorney said, we can only not do one date, but we can do the other 9. And Tucker and his attorney said, oh, well, we're not available for any of those other 9. And so that's why it ended up getting pushed into October, while, Mel Tucker was still collecting that pretty hefty paycheck.
So a couple quick things here. We're looking at the timeline here. Haller knows about this in December, and Tucker cancels her visit in January. I wonder if that's because one of the conditions Haller put on Tucker was, you can't be anywhere near this woman. I don't want her in the same room, in the same county, in the same state with you. But I want to come back to Haller knowing about this in December. Is that appropriate under Title IX that the athletic director would know the identity of the victim and not tell the university president or anybody else, and just take whatever measures he thought were suitable to control the situation?
Well, just to correct that timeline a little bit. So,
please.
The cancellation happened in July of 2022.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It was reported in December 2022. So
okay. She was due to be here in January of 2023.
Oh, maybe.
But he canceled. But I mean, so Tucker canceled her in the summer. Haller found out in December, but she would have been here in January if it hadn't been for the cancellation. Okay, so that's my error. But more to the Haller thing. Based on what he said about what he knew and what he did he follow the rules, or?
I think he was allowed to know information about the case. He says he knew the identity of the complainant. And I believe the reason for that is because, as Tucker's supervisor,
right,
he was tasked with enforcing the interim measures that had been put in place. And one of those interim measures was a no contact order between Brenda and Mel. So, in that sense, it does make sense that he knew her identity in order to ensure that they, weren't communicating.
Okay. So Kenny Jacoby, investigative reporter with USA Today. Last question. This will be the big closer here. Brenda said she wanted to see this case concluded before it got publicized. Has she said anything about whether she plans to sue after the case is concluded? Has there been, I'm sure you must have asked her at some point, do you see pursuing litigation at any time over this incident?
I think it's in the cards. I don't have an indication one way or another as to whether she will. I know, she has, one thing that has upset her a lot is that, essentially she had to come out with this story sooner than she wanted to because she believes somebody at the school leaked, her name to the media. And I think that in and of itself, that could be something that she potentially files suit over. But I don't have any indication right now that she's suing or planning to sue.
So she didn't say, I'm going to beat his ass in the Title IX, then beat his ass in court and make sure this never happens again. I mean, it would be a nice quote, but okay. Well, hey, Kenny, thank you very much. I will just tell you, if you're in town, if you come to East Lansing, I offer you my protection in the same way Pedro offered it to anybody who voted for him for president, Napoleon Dynamite. I think I have the same clout that Napoleon has. I'm a little taller, but than the real Napoleon, not than the guy who played him in the movie. But thank you for the great work. I know you're going to have more. Where can people follow you to get the scoop as soon as it's ready to serve up?
Yeah, usatoday.com is where all my stories are published, and I post all my work on Twitter as well as some more intermediate, developments in the case. So you can find me at Kenny Jacoby on Twitter or X.
So it's pretty straightforward. There's more to come. Great work,
Great
Kenny.
work, yeah.
As a Spartan, I have to tell you, it's great work.
As a Wolverine, I'll tell you, it was great work. I mean, he's written about Harbaugh too, so.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's on next week's show. Okay, Kenny, I know we got to let you go. I don't want you to run into any of that Sean traffic. So thanks for being with us. Keep up the great work, and we will talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And next up, we have a special guest who's patiently been waiting. Vincent McCraw from the Detroit chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists is zooming in to tell us about a big event, a roast of Chuck Stokes, who you all know from Channel 7. He is the host of Spotlight on the News, a true gentleman and a giant in the Michigan, Detroit, specifically journalism community. All that is going to be forgotten the minute the roast starts. So, Vince, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about when and where this is happening and how people can get out there and be a part of it.
Thanks. Hello, ML and your team, gang. We are celebrating Detroit NABJ, which is an affiliate chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary as an affiliate chapter of the National this year. And we're doing a big celebration on this Sunday at Motor City Casino with a gala reception and a dinner. And as you noted, we're going to be roasting Chuck Stokes. Now, many people have said Chuck is such a nice guy that it's hard to roast him, but I think we'll find out differently on Sunday. Just so you know, some of the lineup of those roasting him will be Bill Proctor, formerly investigative reporter at WXYZ, Darcy McConnell, who has her own communications crisis business here in town, Luther Keith, formerly an editor at the Detroit News.
That's Bad Man Luther Keith.
Bad Man Luther Keith, who's also a blues musician, and the MC for the roast part of the gala will be Ed Gordon. Many of you may know Ed Gordon from his days at BET, but he's also a Detroit native, so he'll be the roast. And then we'll also have, for the rest of the program, Sunday evening, MCs will be Megan Wood at WDIV and Josh Landon at
Fox 2.
Fox 2.
My friend and former colleague, Josh Landon, the pride of the East Side, Denby High School Tar.
There you go. And the whole point is not only, one, to celebrate our chapter, but also to recognize those who came before in this chapter in various capacities, to work with, to work in the chapter and with the chapter to fulfill the mission of Detroit NABJ and the national organization NABJ, and that is to advocate on behalf of Black journalists here in Metro Detroit media.
And I can tell you as a former member of the Detroit chapter that this chapter does tremendous work. Some of the early work about 20 years ago was trying to make sure that when descriptions went out on newscasts, that it wasn't average size black male wearing jeans, because every brother in town was getting stopped. That was a huge thing to try and stop profiling and to really help get the bad guys caught and everybody else stay safe. Lots of scholarships given out by DC NABJ to help people get their careers going. Young people are active in the chapter so that they can make the connections that they need to make their career start humming. And a lot of times what you see in underserved communities is people need mentors, and people need someone to show them the way. They may be the first generation going to college. And if you're the first generation of your family going to college and you tell them, I want to go into journalism, like, why are we going to spend all that money for you to be unemployed in 4 years? That does not make sense. DCNABJ shows people what can be done, how to do it, and that there is a future for people who want to tell the stories that are so important and far too often are not told. So this is a great event. This is a tremendous cause. How much are tickets, Vince?
Well, the tickets for single sales have closed.
Okay.
And that's a good thing. We're expecting a little over 200 people. We are still selling tables at $1,250. $1,250. And if you wish to buy a table that seats 10, you can do that by reaching out to at DetroitNABJ at gmail.com. You can go to PayPal and search for Detroit NABJ through that email. A couple of things I want to say, ML, if it's okay.
Sure.
Off of what you said is, I want to note that we do have also, about 2 years now, a mentorship program that does the kinds of thing that you just talked about. Those young people who are interested in this business, in this profession, paired with local journalists around town to serve as their mentors. The other thing I wanted to mention is, part of our work now too is still in advocating for our members and those, if you're not a member, but you're Black journalists in this town, we will advocate for you if you reach out to us. But we also, the diversity piece. I often say that a lot of newsrooms, not just locally, but nationally, tend to have gotten the diversity piece correct of the DEI in terms of hiring, but it's the equity and inclusion part now where the work still remains. In terms of training and retaining and promoting journalists in their newsrooms, as well as having them at the table when decisions are made about coverage and to make sure, as you noted, that the coverage is done of communities, particularly in our case, Black and Latino communities here that often go uncovered or undercovered.
And I met the editor of the Free Press. She's the editor now, Nicole Avery Nichols, when I was a member of DCNABJ, and she was an editor at the Detroit News. And that was 20 years ago. And that's when I knew that if you were going to war, you want Nicole as a general. Now she is now the chairwoman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Detroit Free Press. So this.
She's also the co-chair of our 40th anniversary committee, along with Felicia Henderson.
That's why you sold out all those single tickets already. When Nicole gets going, and of course Felicia's late husband, the great Angela Henderson, Pulitzer Prize winner. I understand there was quite a vigorous roast of him at one point. So
many years ago.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good night. We're going to find out a little bit about Chuck. We're going to find out his friends. Maybe we're paying a little closer attention to his conduct than he may be comfortable with. But it's going to be a great night, and we really appreciate you coming on to talk about it. And we will put a link to the DCNABJ website and how you can get a table, $1,250. I'm sure that's tax deductible.
The website, by the way, DetroitNABJ.org, and you can get all the info there. Yep.
Okay. Right. So have a great time, Vince, and tell Chuck we love him. You might want to get your arms around him. He may need a little support after that.
Okay, I sure will. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Vincent McCraw, Detroit Chapter, National Association of Black Journalists, here on the Soul of Detroit.
Hey, I want to mention if you have financial issues, say you have a lot of money and you don't know what to do with it, there's a person you should call.
That's a good problem to have. Would that be Luke Nowak?
Okay, maybe you don't have enough money, but you want money in the future.
Oh, I thought you said
I'm just searching for a segue of any kind just to talk about Luke Nowacki.
Don't get roasted when you retire and realize
that was too corny.
You got to work for another. Oh,
but you need to figure out, right, if you're on target to meet your financial goals.
Yes, we agree.
Because nobody wants to work till they're 105. Nobody wants to work till they're 86 unless they want to be president.
Or not want to have to work, right? If you love what you're doing, do it till you die. But you don't want to feel like you got no choice.
All right, fair point. Fair point. So
okay, take it away.
Invest with Luke Nowacki, or at least at least call him at
right.
At least call.
We have a quorum. It's unanimous. Motion carried.
Call Luke 248-663-4748. That's 248-663-4748 for a little review, see what your money's doing and what your goals are going to be, and Luke will help you out.
Because when you call Luke, he will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. Member FINRA SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
We're not supposed to move on?
Yeah, no. I want to tell you about another advertiser because we have a special deal with this advertiser. That's the Michigan Peddler, because summer is over, but it's not over for Detroit's top-rated party bike. The fall fun has just begun. Invite friends and family, up to 15 per bike, for fun Friday nights on the town, a Saturday afternoon soaking up the fall sun, or a roving tailgate before a Sunday Lions game. It's a perfect way to get people socializing and off their damn phones, unless they're taking photos at Detroit landmarks that will make them the envy of everyone on Instagram. Michigan Peddler is the party bike famous for cameos on Detroiters and for hosting celebrities from Solange, a.k.a. Beyonce's sister. Athletes, media hotshots, and Soul of Detroit listeners have also cruised with the Michigan Peddler.
Fun time, yeah.
Small groups are no problem. The Mini Peddler is perfect for members of the Sean Windsor fan club because it accommodates groups of 6 or less.
You got a little wry smile out of him. No chuckle, no nothing else.
Perfect for members of the Sean Windsor fan club because it accommodates groups of 6 or less.
We need to get to Geek of the Week.
It could be less than 6.
You just got here.
Most likely is less than 6, but they will accommodate you because that's what they do.
Do you know how disappointed I was when I walked in and the show wasn't done?
Ride start. Well, you could have just sat down and said, good to see you, Cyrus. Ride start in Corktown, so you don't have to worry about traffic or paying for parking before heading through Corktown to Midtown, Campus Martius, the stadiums in downtown. And if it's the Sean Windsor fan club, just drive your smart car down there. Everybody will fit. You can park right there. You can even turn your ride into a pub crawl. Now, if you're booking a birthday celebration, the guest of honor gets a free Michigan Peddler T-shirt. But if you book a ride and use promo code ML, the person who books that ride or the designated beneficiary of the party will get some sweet, only available through the Michigan Peddler, ML Soul of Detroit logo gear to wear proudly on the ride or after the ride when people are like, damn, how'd you get that shit? And we'll say, oh, this is how. Well, this is how they got it. They called the Michigan Peddler at 313-744-3272, or they visited MichiganPeddler.com. That's MichiganPedler.com. We'll have a link to their site on our site. So once again, that's 744-3272 or MichiganPeddler.com.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Sean hates the Geek of the Week.
No. I don't mind the Geek of the Week, and it's just going to be you and me right now because I cannot take Mark's pain anymore. Go upstairs.
All right.
Go upstairs. You're shaking. You're about to convulse over here.
I know, but why are you overmodulating into the microphone?
Because I'm tired.
All right. I'll be right back. Carry on.
Okay,
so you got to make it long enough.
We will.
Yeah, we're good. That's not a problem. So I wanted to change things up and make it Hero of the Week. And my Hero of the Week, Sean, any idea?
Is you, of course.
No. It's Hunter Biden, who is a previous Geek of the Week. You know why he would be our Hero of the Week?
No idea.
Because he has brought Republicans and Democrats together. He is the only person Democrats don't want charged with a gun crime, and the only person with a gun Republicans don't want charged with a crime. No, I got that backwards. Democrats don't want charged with a gun crime, and Republicans do want charged with a gun crime. Boy, I probably...
No, I think that Republicans don't think the gun charge... I think they think the gun charge is a deception, a distraction, a ruse designed to pull attention away from much more serious crimes. I think that's the idea, right?
No, I think they wanted him charged with a gun crime. That's why they wanted that.
But I saw the pushback when he was that, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's just this, right? Because of the, right?
Well, I think he's being charged with the other stuff too.
Yeah, eventually, right?
Okay, so this didn't go well at all. So my other option for Geek of the Week was me, because I had tickets to Duran Duran.
What about a hero?
Well, I bought Hunter Biden because...
No, but what's another hero?
Kenny Jacoby.
I was just going to say our guest.
There you go. Yeah. Boy, we're agreeing on stuff. It's like a Hunter Biden moment. I was going to make myself Geek of the Week because I had tickets to Duran Duran and the Michigan State Huskies Michigan State Washington Huskies football game, and I sold the Duran Duran tickets and went to the football game.
Why?
Bad choice.
I looked for you. I mean,
You didn't see me weeping?
I didn't have binoculars or anything, so I couldn't see.
So late in the game, I always get a bottle of Fireball in there. Late in the game, I had a supervisor for the grounds crew come up to us because there were very few people there. So if you're taking a pull off a bottle, you're very obvious. And they basically just came by and said, "Are you guys okay?" They weren't really worried about the booze. Just like, "Are you going to jump over the wall?" And I said, "I thought about it, but I didn't." So it was going to be me. But you know who it is? And I can't wait for Mark to get here because I know
is this a hero or a geek?
He's going to love.
I'm confused. Hero
We
or
did the
geek?
heroes. Now we're back to the geeks. It was going to be me, but it's Tom Mazaway.
Oh, yeah, always.
Because here's what Mazaway tweeted from the Spartan game. "In all my years of attending games, I've never had a worse experience entering a stadium than today in Lansing. Utter chaos in the concourse. People just crushing each other trying to move. Why? Because they're selling beer for the first time. I'm not exaggerating. Horrible."
Yeah, we talked to him yesterday. He said he almost passed out.
Well, let's just paint the quick picture. That concourse is not easy to get through, period.
No.
Long before they started selling beer.
Have they ever sold alcohol there for any event? I mean, I saw U2 there, but I would have assumed they had beer there. I can't remember.
Probably not. But Maz goes to a game where they're doing something new. They just had metal detectors, which, by the way, I've gone through them twice now. Seamless. But then they're selling beer. You're going to expect a sold-out crowd in an old building that is now selling beer to be a little crowded. So I tweeted back, I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry we don't have a buffet for you to assault." And then he got, "This place will never see me again." Well,
yeah,
guess
right.
what? Oh, but he also said, "I paid for these tickets. I had family visiting, and I bought everybody tickets." I think that's why he's really mad.
All right, yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
I think you should say the Geek of the Week is anybody that wants, and I got a couple of these emails. Dan Campbell fired now.
For one game?
For one game.
It's good to see things settling back into normal in Lions land. So Tom Mazaway, who says he will never cast his shadow in East Lansing again. I feel guilty naming you our Geek of the Week because that sounds good to me. But still, Tommy, you love free shit? Well, here's something else for your shelf. You are our Geek of the Week.
Here you go.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So Tommy and I got a little Twitter war, and I think I may have I may have dropped the nuclear bomb on him when I said the reason why the concessions were so screwed up is because Alex Rodriguez is running them.
That's a good line.
So
it's a good joke.
All the Drew and Mike people know exactly.
God, let me ask you this though.
That's a very good joke.
You were there, right?
I was.
Yeah,
there.
because he sold his Duran Duran tickets, which you missed when you wanted to use the restaurant.
Yeah, I had to choose between Duran Duran and Michigan State.
And he wanted to make himself the Geek of the Week for
terrible choice.
Exactly for that choice. He also wanted to make Hunter Biden the hero because he wants to have a new segment every week called the Hero of the Week.
Why would he be?
No, not every week. No, because I said Hunter Biden brought. Let me see if I get it right this time.
You don't need to go over.
He brought Democrats and Republicans together because he's the only guy Democrats don't want charged with a gun crime, and Republicans do want charged with a gun crime. It worked better that time.
That's a solid joke.
We were Sean and I workshopped it.
But I did want to ask you: were the lines that bad? Were the alcohol, the beer lines that bad?
So I didn't buy any. I
know, but you saw them.
I went through and got to my seat, and I was very glad to see the Mark D'Antonio era brought back terrible play calling and Thunderstruck before the game, which is one of my favorite things. And they brought the walk back where the guys walked.
Wasn't the question? The question was, so you didn't see bad lines?
I didn't experience it. No, I mean, it was, I get it there just before kickoff.
You saw him out of the corner of your eye.
It's a game where the stadium is pretty much sold out. And I'll tell you something, the people from Washington traveled great. And you know why? They had a twofer. They had the Huskies
in Seattle,
in East Lansing, and then the Seahawks in Detroit.
I saw Seahawks jerseys Saturday night in East Lansing.
Pretty nice weekend if you flew in from Seattle. We were much better hosts here in Michigan than they were when I flew out to Washington. I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, I would say if it was bad, like Tom said, they'll fix it. It's the first time.
Tom is used to getting through the red,
just waltzing right in.
Yeah, through the velvet rope, because like, hey, yeah, Drew Lane's tickets here, and hey, boop, 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 boop,
No, he got mad when I suggested yesterday, just use a press pass next time.
Yeah, I love Tom, but he's the scroungiest mother scratcher you will ever meet. And if you want a clown Spartan, I guess he's never been to Michigan Stadium when people are trying to wait to get in the bathrooms. It's a college stadium that's old. There's only a few shitters, and when you're selling beer, it's going to be longer lines. Get used to it, Tommy. This is the way the rest of us who pay for stuff live. Anyway, Caju Cafe is brought to you by the other East Side Giant, not Tom Masway. Of course, they'll be unveiling a bust of Tom on the East Side very soon.
Huh?
Oh, what?
Ooh, I don't know. Never mind.
Still even PTSD from those orange cones.
Fantastic contribution.
Yeah. Caju Cafe, something fantastic happening every week. Wednesday, tonight, Mr. Picasso with J.C. Whitelaw. That's Tuesday. Wednesday, karaoke. Thursday, Terrapin Flyer performs the music of the Grateful Dead. Friday, Slippery People, a Talking Heads tribute. I think we know where Sean will be on Friday. Ish is also playing, which I'm assuming is some sort of Irish band. Saturday, Pockets and the TSB. Sunday, RJ Spangler's Planet D None. Monday, Blue Mondays, open blues jam, and all you can eat mussels. It is muscle madness on Mondays, so you are going to want to hit the Caju Cafe for a great time on the East Side. Check out the new sign, check out the beer garden. It's all great. And finally, we have an entry in room 7609 that I think Sean will appreciate.
Love it.
Duran Duran, who rocked the LCA with this little ditty, the theme song to one of the great James Bond songs, A View to a Kill.
Meeting